I think more law firms need to realize that without a strong intake system in place, they're leaving a lot of money on the table every month. So when we're speaking with a potential new client, we're going to be looking for 7 different symptoms that indicate that the firm may have some problems with intake. The first is that they're not treating intake like a sales call. I see so many firms that think they can get away with hiring an untrained candidate or an offshore virtual assistant just to pick up the phone, ask some basic questions, and then send their retainer for signature. And in actuality, the people looking for legal help are likely considering and speaking with other law firms before they decide who to work with. So your intake staff really needs to be able to quickly establish rapport with your prospective clients. And then they need to confidently articulate what makes the law firm better than the alternatives. And then they need to be well versed in the practice areas that the law firm specializes in so that they can confidently answer questions or address any objections from the prospective client. The second symptom is they're not recording calls. They're not reviewing those calls with their intake team, and they're not giving their intake team feedback on what they're doing well and where they need to improve. Law firms that aren't doing this are not giving their teams the necessary oversight and training to become truly great. The third symptom is that they don't have a defined intake process in place. So the intake team isn't following a script that includes a warm greeting and prioritizes qualifying questions earlier in the call. The team also doesn't have a defined decision tree to determine how certain scenarios and client types should be handled. And they also don't have a defined follow-up protocol in place to reach back out to potential clients. So the better and more defined the intake process is, the smoother the intake team can operate overall. Number 4 is they're not incentivizing their intake team to sign cases. The best intake departments I've seen are competitive, they're goal-oriented teams that are rewarded for their individual and collective contributions to their firms. A great incentive program will put the intake team's skin in the game and orient their thinking, their behaviors, their actions towards generating more and more cases. This is going to require someone at the firm to review numbers with your team on a consistent basis and then set quotas and goals on a consistent basis as well. The 5th symptom is they're not using an intake management software that logs and tracks every lead that comes in. It frankly doesn't matter which software they use, whether it's Clio, Lawmatics, Cloudlex, or the dozens of other solutions out there, so long as they have a tool that they are using to log and track the progress of every single lead that comes into the firm. And by every single lead, I mean every single lead. These softwares also come with a variety of reports, integrations, and automations that can free up intake teams from the day-to-day busy work, and that will enable them to spend a greater proportion of their time on higher impact activities. The 6th symptom is they're not using an answering service. So let's say a firm has a staff of 3 intake people and they're all on calls. What happens when a 4th, 5th, or 6th person calls into your firm while they're busy on the phones? What happens if someone calls into your firm at 1 a.m. on a Sunday after suffering a catastrophic injury and everyone at your firm is asleep? If a firm doesn't have an answer to those questions, odds are they would benefit from bringing on an answering service to help answer calls, to assist with call overflow, or picking up the phone on nights and weekends. So in short, law firms need to be able to interact with prospective clients 24/7, 365. And if they're not available, one of their competitors will be, and they'll lose those clients. They won't win those clients. The 7th symptom is the attorneys at the firm are still the ones doing the intakes. The fact is that if you're a lawyer, you need to be spending as much of your time as possible on the stuff that only lawyers can do, whether it's reviewing case files, conducting depositions, appearing in court, so on and so forth. So the fact is your law firm will never grow beyond a certain point if your lawyers are the ones still doing intake. And to be frank, a lot of lawyers aren't actually very good salespeople and therefore aren't that great at intake. So again, like I said, if your law firm is neglecting your intake effort and any of these symptoms sound familiar, odds are that you're losing out on a lot of clients and potential revenue each month.